It's a war of all against all. The history of humanity is a book written in blood. We're all just animals in a pit.
Welcome to the Dreams of Consciousness podcast. If you'd be so kind, would you mind introducing yourself?
My name's Galen Baudhuin from Infera Bruo.
Listeners probably already know this, but you were also in Trap Them and Wolves in the Throne Room as well, right?
Correct, yeah. I played bass in Trap Them for a number of years, the last 2 records that we put out. And I'm currently a session member of Wolves in the Throne Room. So I tour with them, and I'm playing on the yet-to-be-released recording. So, yeah.
Would you say Infera Bruo is your main band?
It has been for a long time, yeah. Because we started kind of a long time ago. We've been around since 2009, technically, although we didn't put out anything until 2011. But yeah, it's been my main band for all that time. Things are changing a little now because I've moved away from where that band is based, which is New England. And I'm now living in the desert. So it's a little more difficult, but we'll see what happens.
So speaking of the desert, I should mention that Warg from Heretical Sect is the one who put us in touch with each other. He contacted me after I interviewed him and said that I should get in touch with you and talk to you about Infera Bruo.
Awesome. Yeah. He's a great guy. We've been talking a lot, working on some music stuff that, may or may not come to fruition. We'll see. I don't want to say anything about it before it's done, but we're collaborating on some stuff, and yeah, he's a good guy.
Now, how would you describe the music of Infera Bruo?
I mean, we're essentially a black metal band. That term is kind of it's kind of hard to pin down, as you know. But I think sonically, most people who would hear us, including myself, if I heard us for the first time, would say, oh yeah, that's a black metal band. And I think we incorporate a lot of other influences, but in a very subtle way. So it usually ends up, you have to listen a few times to hear the things that are coming from different types of music.
Are you the main songwriter for Infera Bruo?
I'd say, yeah. I've written the majority of the material, but Neutrino, the bass player, also writes. He's written stuff for most of the albums. He wrote one song on the new album, and he also contributes to lyrics. So, yeah. But the bulk of the riffs and the music and stuff usually come from me. So,
as you alluded to, the term black metal is nebulous and somewhat debatable. I interviewed a gentleman who wrote a book about U.S. black metal, and part of my intention in speaking to him is to try to figure out, is there a sound to U.S. black metal the way we think of Norwegian black metal or Swedish black metal or any other regional scene having a sound? And his take was interesting because it was essentially what unifies U.S. black metal is essentially just geography, just the fact that they're all located within the same country. And regionally, there's not a lot, or even, in terms of within the history of U.S. black metal, there's so many different styles and almost opposing viewpoints that it's hard to say that it's a singular entity. You have a unique perspective because you're based in, or you were living in New England. You're part of Wolves in the Throne Room, who are based in the Pacific Northwest, mm-hmm. and now you're currently living in the Southwest. And so you've been to all these and are a part of all these different scenes. I'm curious what your take on it is. Like, do you see a commonality between Wolves in the Throne Room and some of the black metal bands coming out of the East Coast and the Southwest? Is there a unifying character to U.S. black metal?
That's a good question. I think I agree in that I'm not really sure there's a specific sound that can be pinned down for US black metal. I mean, there's a lot of variation. I mean, granted, there's a lot of variation in, Norwegian black metal too. A lot of those earlier second wave bands didn't really sound all that much alike. But yeah, I think geographically is kind of the only thing that makes it US black metal. I think that's accurate. There, the scene in New England, there is a nice little kind of New England black metal scene that we felt we were a part of, which was really nice. And we bonded with a lot of those bands. But musically, I think, everyone was kind of different. And part of the reason I moved out there in the first place was to find other like-minded musicians, because here in New Mexico, at the time I moved away, which was probably 12 years ago, I couldn't find anybody here that was kind of on the same page musically with me. And even out there, it took many years to find people that were into some of the same stuff I was into. So, yeah.
So I don't know what your situation is with Wolves, but do you go to Washington State when you record with them?
No, the stuff for the new record I recorded here, and just sent them raw bass tracks, and they're just, using those as they please, basically. And I think the album is getting close to being done at this point, mixing and stuff. So there should be news about that at some point soon, I think. But it's hard to say in this environment right now. Releasing an album is kind of a weird thing unless you have some sort of plans behind it. Yeah. And that was kind of the thing with Infera Bruo's last record. Is one of the reasons we just went ahead and released it in 2020 is because the way the band functions, we wouldn't really have been able to tour anyway. So it was like, well, let's put it out. But I think for bands that rely on touring, it's kind of a weird time to try to put out an album with that being so uncertain.
So let's talk about the history of Infera Bruo a little bit.
Sure.
You mentioned that the band was formed in 2009. What led to the band forming?
Just my, desire to do some kind of, I guess, vaguely second wave-ish kind of black metal project, and just finding a couple people that were into it. I didn't really know many people who were musicians that had any interest in playing that kind of stuff at all. So I started just kind of searching around and found a couple guys, and we had a full band at first, and the bass player quit within the first month or so. And then after that, we wrote as a 3-piece for a while, and then eventually Neutrino, who also writes music and does backup vocals and stuff, joined, and then it kind of felt like a real band. But that wasn't until 2011.
Now, why specifically second wave black metal? What is it about the style that appeals to you?
Man, I don't know. It just speaks to me. It's something that's always gotten kind of like an emotional reaction from me. It's very cathartic to listen to, even more so to play. Yeah. And, I'd played a lot of different kinds of stuff. Previous to that, I hadn't been in black metal bands. I had played other kinds of metal stuff, more kind of traditional metal stuff. Yeah, but that second wave stuff, man, it's all about when you hear things. And I think I heard that stuff, a lot of those bands, at a time that, I just really took it all in. So it affected me a lot.
Were there specific bands that were influential to you?
Oh, tons, yeah. All the standards. All the standard stuff was the first stuff I heard. I think that Firestarter compilation that Century Media put out a long time ago.
Oh, yeah.
That was I know everyone.
Which came with a match.
Yeah, exactly. That turned me on to a lot of stuff. And from there, I kind of expanded into those bands. Yeah, the standards, Enslaved, Mayhem, Ulver, all that stuff. Thorns is a big thing for me still. Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, listening to Infera Bruo, my first thought was that your music sounds very European. I grew up on not necessarily those bands, but you mentioned the Firestarter compilation.
Mm-hmm.
My introduction to black metal was the Blackened compilation. I don't know if you remember that.
I don't know what was on that one.
Basically a lot of the really big bands. So Emperor, Satyricon, a lot of the Swedish bands like Marduk and Dark Funeral.
Yeah.
And so listening to Infera Bruo, that's kind of what I got out of it, second wave, but specifically that early Norwegian sound.
Yeah. I take that as a compliment, because that's the stuff that influenced the band for the most part. It's the basic framework of the band is definitely that European style. And then we just kind of all brought in whatever weird influences we had outside of it. So.
From forming the band to releasing your first album, what was that process like? What was that journey like?
It was a long process that we didn't really know that we were actually going to ever get anything out. There's a lot of setbacks, a lot of second guessing. And yeah, and the first recording we put out, which isn't available anymore, it's just a self-titled demo kind of thing, is a little different than what we turned into. Not too much. I don't feel like it was really representative of what we were doing. So after that, I wanted to try to make the sound as honest as possible. Just what we sound like playing in a room is kind of the goal that we've always had.
Now, were you self-recording all your releases?
Yeah, not all of them. We've recorded ourselves. 2 albums, In Conjuration and Cerement, we recorded drums at a place called Studio Wormwood in Connecticut with our friend Dave Kaminsky, who also was our second guitar player live. So he had a really cool studio and still does, actually. He's a great guy, great engineer. And he recorded drums for those 2. Everything else I've recorded pretty much everything for.
You have your own setup?
Yeah, I have a studio in quotation marks, but it's really just like a little mobile rig. You know, like for recording drums for Rites of the Nameless, we did all the drums in our rehearsal space. So not like a nice room or anything. It's just all close mic'd stuff. But it turned out really well considering. So yeah, it's just a little mobile rig, and wherever I can bring it is where the studio is, basically.
Let's talk about Rites of the Nameless. It's your 4th album, and it came out in October of 2020. How long were you working on this album?
Let's see here. It had been a while. There were some setbacks with this one, for sure. So probably over a year. There was a long process of trying to figure out how we were going to record it, and drummer issues happened. This is the first record that doesn't have Ardroth playing drums on it, and he decided to bow out in the middle of the recording. So there's a lot of kind of chaos around it. Yeah, it took a while.
So how did you end up recording the drums? Is it a drum machine on the album?
No, it's not. It's Alex Fuel. He's an amazing drummer and local Boston guy who's in a handful of really good bands. Most of the bands he's in a black thrash kind of band called Black Mass, and he's in some death metal bands as well. I don't think he's played in any black metal bands really, but he's a good friend, and I knew he was a really good drummer. So basically a month before I moved away from Massachusetts, he learned all the stuff. I sent him all the program drums that I did, and he learned it all. And we got together, just the 2 of us, sat in a room and banged out the drum tracks in a couple days. And then I moved to New Mexico and finished the record here by myself. So, yeah.
When did you do the recording? Was it in 2020?
No, let's see. So the drums would have been tracked at the tail end of 2019. Yeah.
Before the world went crazy, basically.
Exactly. And the guitar, a lot of the guitars, all the solos and all the vocals and the lyrics and stuff I did just kind of in quarantine world in New Mexico.
In terms of the songs, how would you compare Rites of the Nameless to your previous albums?
I think they're a little more honed in. I feel like the album previous to Rites, Cerement, was kind of a restart for us, in that I wanted to kind of reassess the songwriting and sort of try to bring out the best elements of what we can do and kind of leave some of the stuff that was unnecessary. The album previous to that, In Conjuration, which is, I'm really proud of. I think it's a little much sometimes. So Cerement kind of stripped everything away, and then Rites is sort of like building it back up to kind of our ideal of what we should sound like. So yeah, I think the songs are a little more mature structure-wise, and it's a little more subtle. Like the prog influence and stuff is a little more subtle. It's kind of hard to hear unless you listen to it a couple times.
Can you explain what you mean by removing the stuff that was unnecessary? What specifically about the previous albums did you find too much?
Well, I think it's easy for a band to kind of go overboard with trying to like play their instruments more than necessary. I always say, just because you can doesn't mean you should. And I've definitely been guilty of like playing things because I like playing them and not because I like listening to them. And over the years, I think part of growing as a songwriter has been being able to pinpoint that and say, okay, what sounds good, not what is going to be impressive or what I like to play technically. Yeah, so I think that's a big part of growing as a songwriter. And that's basically the kinds of stuff that I try to weed out with the newer stuff. It's like, all right, is this necessary? Or are we trying to, show off, basically?
So with Trap Them, you had previously recorded with Kurt Ballou. I'm curious if you picked up anything or learned anything through working with Kurt.
Absolutely. I mean, he's an amazing engineer, a great guy, great guitar player. I'd done a lot of recording stuff in the past. I went to recording school and worked at a studio and stuff. So technically I had a grasp on things, but it's always cool to see someone else work, someone who's like really good at their craft. So I'm not sure if there's anything that I can pinpoint specifically that I learned from him, but just watching him work was always really cool.
I mean, the term producer is kind of nebulous, and they're producers who are more almost like spiritual gurus, and they're producers like Kurt, who I believe is very hands-on and very technical minded in terms of like he knows his equipment and he knows specifically how to get the sounds that he's looking for.
Totally. Yeah, it's like, yeah, you're right. I mean, he's an engineer before a producer, it seems like to me. And those are the two types. There's the engineer producers who, are hands-on, know the equipment. And then there are the producers who are more descriptive, who work with engineers, who, get the sound of a band by kind of like communicating with them and pulling things out, but not necessarily twisting knobs. And Kurt is definitely a knob twister. He knows what he's doing. So it's great. But he also is a musician. So he has a great ear for things. And especially in that band, it was totally his kind of thing. So he had a lot of good suggestions and things.
Right. So the Nameless was mastered by Brad Boatwright. Brad's name comes up a lot on this podcast. A lot of metal bands and underground metal bands work with him. What would you say he brings to your sound?
Well, he's great at what he does, which is why we keep going back to him. I think it's really important, especially for a band like us who are very self-sufficient, very DIY. When you're doing a recording yourself, it's definitely a good thing to have some other ears. And he's been really helpful with that. I don't know how far up my own ass I go with mixing these things. So it's good to send it to someone who can hear it outside of my tunnel vision and be like, all right, this needs to change as far as like the overall sonics of it, bringing out different, EQ and things like that. So, and it's nice. Usually we have a couple back and forth revisions, and he'll, I think a couple records I'd actually adjust some things in the mix. So yeah, it's really invaluable to have his ears at the end of the process like that.
So is this your second album to be released on Prosthetic?
It is, yeah.
How did you guys get involved with them? Or I guess, how did they get involved with the release?
Let's see. Yeah, so the previous album, Cerement, which was the first to be on Prosthetic, that was finished and waiting to be released on a different label. And we got kind of, it was a weird circumstance, but basically we got dropped from that label and kind of in this hopeless state of like, all right, well, is this album even going to come out? And I just emailed a couple labels that I knew of, and Trap Them was already on Prosthetic, so I had kind of an in with some of the people there. And Steve was really into it, and he said they wanted to put it out. So basically it was completely done, like artwork and everything, just kind of sitting there, and they put that out for us. And they've been super helpful. So, yeah. And,
Steve's the lifer in terms of the independent metal scene. He was working with Century Media, the U.S. office of Century Media previously, before Prosthetic. Yeah.
Right, yeah.
Yeah.
Very cool, yeah.
Are you from New Mexico originally?
I am, yeah. I was raised in New Mexico, lived here for, a lot of my life, then did a recording school thing, moved out to San Francisco for a while, moved back here, then went out to the East Coast, and now I'm back here again.
So you spoke about the scene a little bit, how there wasn't much going on prior to Infera Bruo forming. We mentioned Heretical Sect, who I interviewed a few weeks back, and now the scene seems to be blowing up there, or at least around the Santa Fe area. What do you know about the scene? How would you describe the scene that's going on in Santa Fe right now, or in New Mexico?
It's very cool. It's definitely a lot different than it was when I moved away from here. There's a lot of frustration with it when I left. And then, I stayed in touch with people here, and over the years, they've been, telling me about stuff that was happening, bands that were happening. And every time I come back to visit, there's, cooler, newer bands. And I think, a lot of it has to do with the internet age where, it doesn't really matter location-wise where you're at. I think the same could be said about like the Colorado scene and stuff, because it doesn't matter if it's accessible or not. It doesn't matter if it's on a coast or not. Yeah. So yeah, the Santa Fe scene has grown a lot. It seems super cool here now. A lot of good friends. Everybody knows each other. Yeah. It's good.
Are there any bands in the Santa Fe scene that stand out to you?
Well, yeah, I mean, Heretical Sect is phenomenal. They're awesome. Superstition is cool. There's a lot of good stuff. A lot of the same guys in a lot of these bands as well. And you kind of just know, like, all right, well, if these guys are involved, it's probably going to be really good. So yeah, there's just some good bands. I started playing in a band called Street Tombs here with some of the guys who are also in Heretical Sect. It's a little more death thrashy, I guess. That's my best description of it. But yeah, something should be coming out from them as well soon.
So with you based in New Mexico, and I'm assuming the rest of Infera Bruo is still based in New England?
Correct. Yeah, they are.
How does that work? Are you guys working remotely, trading sound files? Like, what's the status of the band right now?
At this point, it's just kind of after the release of the album, we all just kind of wanted to relax a little. So it's kind of up in the air. We haven't even really discussed writing more music and how that would work, or how rehearsing would work, or we haven't even really discussed that actually. Neutrino's busy writing some stuff. I've been writing a bunch of music for what will probably turn into some kind of solo thing. I've been trying to teach myself to play drums. So at this point, it's just kind of, we're going to wait until it feels right and then sort of address that issue as it comes.
Now, with the album out, you're 4 albums into Infera Bruo. What do you hope to accomplish after this?
That's hard to say. I really wanted to tour for this record, and the timing obviously was really bad. And I had kind of floated the idea of getting some touring musicians here and kind of moving forward with that. And I started working with some people and started, teaching some people songs and stuff. And then once I realized that, live music wasn't coming back anytime soon, I kind of just pulled the plug on that. So really, at this point, it's kind of up in the air, the whole thing, as far as like what's next for the band and, what we want to accomplish. It kind of depends if things get to a point where we can easily work with each other and not have to deal with, the virus thing. So.
Rites of the Nameless is out now through Prosthetic Records. Galen, tell people what the best way to order the album would be.
You can go to our Bandcamp, inferabruo.bandcamp. All our albums are up there, including the new one, vinyl, CD. There's no cassette version of the new one, but there are cassette versions of some of the other ones there. And we got merch up there and everything, so that's probably the best way to get anything Infera Bruo is to go to our Bandcamp page.
Now, in terms of the vinyl version, is there a special edition? Like I saw something about like a white vinyl or something like that.
I think the only one that is available at this point is like it's some kind of multicolor. Well, it's too gray. It's like white and gray, basically. Gray, white smoke kind of looking thing. Yeah. I think it's the only one that's available.
And if people want to follow Infera Bruo online, how can they do that?
You can follow us. We have an Instagram account, Infera Bruo. And, we have a Facebook account, which I'm not very active on there. But the Instagram account, I post things on there, post updates. And also, if you follow us on Bandcamp, I update that frequently. If we have a new product or something, new shirt or whatever, I'll send out messages. So if you follow us on there, you'll get info about the band as well.
Do you want to say anything about the other projects you're working on?
Not much to say at this point. It's, things are happening. I'm playing a lot of music, writing a lot of music, but it's going to be a while till anything actually comes out. So, yeah.
Is there anything else you want to talk about?
I don't think so. thanks for talking. It was great.
Thanks, Galen.
Thank you. Appreciate it.